So this was an instance where we could take a situation and build more housing and get some affordable housing on it. Over half would have been affordable. That isn't what happened. We had multiple groups come against it, tried really hard to argue it, but they wanted the price lower than we could possibly pencil it and make it work. They wanted, they were concerned about the environment. And I'm like, well, there's going to be houses here regardless. They were concerned about traffic. Again, some of the same arguments you get everywhere. And I get it. I mean, none of it's perfect, but we're a changing community, and we're going to have to figure out compromises and ways to get housing here, or we're just going to continue to chase away teachers and folks that work in this community.
Welcome to the next episode of Greater Texas Podcast, and thanks so much for our fantastic guest, who I'm sure needs no introduction to anybody in the Central Texas real estate community, but Phyllis Snodgrass. Thanks so much for being here.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. So what we do this podcast, which I think we talked a little bit about, is we do kind of 3 different parts. We'll talk about your background first, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you and Habitat are doing now, and then we'll talk about all the challenges facing Texas as we and how we think would fix them if we were in charge, right?
Yeah, right.
So let's talk about. So tell me, you're a native, unlike myself, you're a native Texan, right?
Absolutely, Texas girl, born and bred.
And from where?
I'm from Victoria, Texas.
Gotcha, awesome. And then where'd you go to college then after that?
So I bounced around, followed a boyfriend, ended up at University of Texas at Arlington, and got a degree in accounting. That was during an economic downturn, and I knew I could get a job doing that.
Yeah.
It really wasn't probably the thing I wanted to do the rest of my life, but ended up being fantastic training for the things I've gotten to do.
It's so funny. I started in college in engineering because same thing, like my dad was an engineer. And so he's like, you got to get a degree that you can get a job in. And that's, well, I didn't finish because I wasn't, smart enough, I guess, or inclined enough to do that. But, you really look to, all right, what kind of degree is going to help you get that job? And so, but then you worked in real estate accounting for a while, right?
I did. I worked in public accounting and real estate accounting for 15 years. So I was pretty stubborn, trying to make my way through and learned so much. There's so much value and persevering in something that may not feel like the best fit, because that first 15 years of a career, you're just learning so much. And if you're in a place where you're learning, there's just value in that. A lot of people they graduate and they come see me and they want to get that dream job. And I'm like, I crawled here.
Exactly. No, it's 100%. I get that. I have my nephew here who's a college student, and he's here for 3 weeks as kind of an intern. And I didn't realize, you don't realize how old you are until you're like kind of giving advice to a college student, right?
That's right.
And I was doing that kind of thing the other day, and just how important the first few years of your career. Not that you have to stay in that career, but you just learn so much. You learn about just how to work, right?
Exactly. There's value in that.
Yeah, exactly.
How to behave.
Right. 100%. Yeah. That's great. And then you left that and went into the chamber world, right?
I did. I tried a short stint of my own CPA firm, and very short stint, and found myself doing more nonprofit volunteer work than CPA work, because at that point I had started figuring out I really didn't like accounting.
Gotcha.
I always wanted to run a small business, but it's not best to start with one in a field that you really don't like. So, I hats off to folks that do it for a living, and I like accounting. I like digging into spreadsheets, but just not day in and day out.
Right.
And so anyway, did that for a bit, started doing some small business counseling, kind of took a turn and enjoyed that, and did a lot of volunteering, including with the Chamber of Commerce, and ended up getting a job with the Chamber of Commerce.
And did that, what interested you in moving into the Chamber of Commerce world? Well,
I knew I wanted to get out of accounting.
Right.
Really badly. And it was a small community. I had done the audit for the chamber in Athens, Texas, small, beautiful community. And I thought, well, it didn't pay a lot, but it was an opportunity to try something different. I figured the kids were young. They didn't know that I was taking a step into poverty for a while. And so it was a really good opportunity to spread my wings and try something different. And as soon as I got in it and started doing the work and meeting people that did the work, I just fell in love with community development and fell in love with it and knew that that was where I was supposed to be. I thought I would be there the rest of my life. So
interesting. And then you moved from like a couple of different chambers around that and ultimately ending up here in Austin.
Yeah, I became kind of known as a fixer. I would come into one that might have had some problem and either financial, needed to build up membership, maybe the last CEO had exited and, multiple reasons, but just would end up coming in and helping do a turnaround and get it in a better place. And then once you do that a couple of times, you kind of get known for it. So then after that, it was like people would call me saying, come here, fix this, come here, fix that. So that became kind of my second half of my career.
And did you said before you kind of like, it was kind of like a duck to water, right? You just loved this world.
Just knew it immediately.
And what about it did you love so much? Like,
so much to learn. I mean, every single day is something new. There's so much variety. You get to meet so many interesting people. Even in the small town of Athens, Texas, it is kind of a bedroom community to Dallas, and a lot of wealthy people have second homes there and country estates. And so that was at the time George Bush was governor, and he had a place there. I used to see him at the Mexican restaurant, My first three banquet speakers, I'm trying to remember, I had Laura Bush, I had Ron Kirk, and I had Troy Dungan, who was a famous TV weatherman in Dallas that wore a bow tie that everybody knew who he was. I mean, it was like that because I got to be in a small place but meet really influential people that introduced me to people, and I learned a lot in a small space and then was able to just take that and move up. It couldn't have been a better place to start.
Gotcha.
And it's still a beautiful community. Love that community.
Gotcha. And then in 2015, you moved to Habitat. What was the impetus behind that move?
One of the recruiters, a wonderful, talented lady that I've run into before and has placed me in a different position, called me up and said, I have your next career. And she is persistent, and I knew she is because she had absolutely convinced me to take that last job. So I thought, well, I'll shortcut 3 months of her chasing me and just go to lunch with her and hear her out. And I did. And I hadn't been looking. I really didn't think I was going to do anything but chamber work forever. Right. But she had a compelling pitch. I have contacts in the Austin area. It would give me an opportunity to learn something new and be really relevant in an issue that's really affecting the community. And it's a huge brand. The more I dug into it, the more I realized this was a really great next step for me, and fell in love with the work and the brand and the people.
So has it been what you expected it to be?
Yes and no. It is every bit as interesting as I thought it would be, but a lot harder and more complicated. And that's what makes it so interesting.
Right.
So many different lines of business under one roof. I mean, I knew that they were there, but I didn't really think about the fact that you're running a retail operation, you're running a real estate development company, you've got a HUD certified housing counseling agency, you've got a affordable housing consulting firm, you're running a traditional nonprofit that raises money. It's just like you're doing. We created an online restore. We did critical home repairs. So you got a home repair service. So just all these different. Your land development. You're buying land and developing it, and so it's just all these different things. And it wasn't just learning one thing, but a lot of things. Some things I've touched and done in the past, but a long, long time ago. And then on top of all that, the affordable housing world itself and all its nuance and acronyms. Yeah. And I spent months just learning the acronyms.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about, now that we're in Habitat, let's talk a little bit about what Habitat is doing. And obviously it's such a fantastic organization. And you talked to me a little bit about sort of Habitat's vision and their 3 pillars, if you can kind of talk a little bit about that.
I would love to. So Habitat really traditionally and for many years had built homes with volunteers in the community. It was a labor of love, and it created impact. It created impact for the families served and for families that touched those families and the people that participated in the building process, just getting to be a part of the community and make a difference. But the need was so great. And when I arrived in 2015, we were not producing anywhere near the level that we needed to be relevant. At the same time, it was harder to do it than it's ever been in Habitat's 30-year history at that point. So it's like, how do you go from where you're at to where you need to be? And you're building homes that you're selling. So it's not rental. There's not a whole lot of tax credit benefit for investors. There's, it's a hard model to do.
Right.
And so we just really try to figure out how to innovate, how to take ourselves to the next level. So one of our pillars is building the homes ourselves. But we expanded from just building them with volunteers to doing 2 layers, some with contractors and some with volunteers. So that allows you to do more.
Right.
Our second pillar is really building our home-based consulting business up. Home-based existed, but I just saw that it had so much potential. There's such a need to partner with builders and developers in the private sector and help them do affordable housing better.
Okay,
And
so how does the home base work? So
basically, home base operates on multiple levels with builders and developers. If they're considering doing affordable housing, we'll consult with them and help them work the numbers and help them evaluate it and help them understand what it's going to take to do it.
Right.
And sometimes that results in them not doing it, but that's okay.
Yeah,
it's better that they
right.
figure that out now.
Right.
Sometimes they build the homes. A lot of times that's because they get additional density bonuses or other incentives from the city that require them to build a certain number of affordable homes. And then we contract to sell the homes for them. And so we're able to come in. We've got an affordable housing pipeline. We've got people coming to us looking for homes.
Right.
We're not building as many as we need to. And so this allows us to have more inventory to sell. And so it's allowed us where we might be building 20 homes a year, we might be selling 100 homes a year through Homebase. And then our third pillar is advocacy. We truly believe that to impact thousands of homes, what we have to do is change the policies that prevent homes from getting built in the first place.
This is where our friend Greg Anderson comes into
And
it.
that's where our friend Greg and many other friends come into
Gotcha.
it. Yeah.
So how does, obviously, as we talked about, Habitat has this great brand and great national brand. Does that help you in the local market? Does that make it, not easy, but easier for you to get things done?
Well, it absolutely does. Both Habitat International has really recognized that, and we recognize that as well. They've created a national advocacy campaign called Cost of Home, and it is becoming one of their core pillars because they see that's the way to impact thousands more families and hundreds of thousands across the country in the future with just better federal policies, and they help influence state and local. But I'm proud to say with Greg's work, with our team's work, we've been able to do things here in our Austin market that they've used as an example at the national level. And so we've really leaned into that. And I think my chamber experience in advocacy, advocating for businesses, advocating for better building codes, better, more business-friendly solutions has really helped because I understand the value of that voice. And I also understood the value of our Habitat brand. And so we're willing to leverage that, not just for homes that we're building, but for projects that get more houses built, period.
Gotcha. Great. So what are a couple of the projects that Habitat has going on right now that you're excited about?
Well, a lot of projects that we have going on that I'm excited about. One in particular is a lot purchase we did with Taylor Morrison. So we were able to, one of our goals after I got here was to produce different product types. We knew we could do it,
right,
but get some on the ground so that people could see we're capable of doing more than just the traditional model, that we have the skill sets to do that. And by doing that, we can get the attention of builders and developers and potentially do projects in their neighborhoods that they will realize will be lovely and compatible and, something that they'll be proud of having in their community. Right. The Miller project that we did that Michael Shue's office designed, it was an award-winning project. I'm so thankful for the immensely talented team that he put together to work on that. But those 11 townhomes are just some of the most beautiful townhomes in the Mueller development. I really think they look better than some of the, sorry guys, but some of the for-profit developer townhomes in the project. They're just beautiful. And we did them affordably, sold them less than $200,000 a piece. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to deliver.
That's amazing,
it's amazing.
Right? Yeah.
We just bought some homes from Taylor Morrison. So I just mentioned we bought some lots from Taylor Morrison. AISD had sold them the land. They've developed it. The deal was that 25% of the homes would be affordable. So we purchased the lots from them, and now we're going to build homes in the neighborhood that are matching the design requirements of the neighborhood. And so that's going to be another great portfolio project to show how we can fit in and integrate into a for-profit community.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
And you have the Restore too, right? Such a
very
great
proud
place.
of the Restore. Yeah. So one of our goals was really to build a sustainable income stream. If you want to do more, you've got to have money to do it. And we knew we had a winner in Restore, but we also knew it could be more than it had been. I hired an amazing gentleman, William Stockton, who came in to lead our Restore operations. And under his leadership, we just purchased land for our fourth store in Pflugerville. So we now have our Ben White, a store in West Austin. Now we'll have a store northeast, and we've got one in San Marcos, and we've got an online store. Our Ben White location has been the top grossing store in the country for the last 4 years.
That's fantastic.
So we've got friends from the Toronto affiliate coming to see us in 2 weeks to check us out and see how we're doing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing.
So with all the success, though, you are leaving there soon, right?
I am.
So what have you decided to do?
I just kind of know it's time. I think everybody knows when it's time, and I feel like I came and did what I showed up to do, and that was to set them in a good direction and put them on a sustainable path for the future.
Right.
And so, I knew at some point last year that had been accomplished. Also didn't know what I would do next, and I love Habitat. So it was just kind of a soul searching period to try to figure out, is there something else? Is this where I stay? And it really kind of hit me around Christmas. It is time for me to move, and I'm going to leave and run C12 groups. So C12 is a Christian CEO peer advisory program that I've participated in as a CEO while at Habitat, and it's been a wonderful way for me to just sit around the room with CEO peers that do other kinds of business,
right.
Bounce my ideas off of them. Basically, we take each other's watches, tell each other what time it is in a different language, and then give the watch back, And so it is just the miracle of just having good counsel over and over and over again, people that will hold you accountable, and also just really great teaching and lessons. And I love that sort of thing. I think that it's something that I'm going to enjoy doing for a number of years. But I also know Habitat is we have done some amazing things, but we're really taking off. We're going to build our biggest project ever, an 126-unit condominium townhome project in Southeast Austin. We've got some land acquisition deals that are very exciting and projects on the horizon that look very promising. And so I know that this is the perfect time to bring somebody in who wants to be in a thriving organization that has the funds to do what it needs to do. We were struggling when I got there to pay the bills. We're not now. We're in great shape. And because of that, I think it's going to be attractive to someone who can really grow it and lead it. And I want somebody to be here who can be with these projects to the end.
Right.
I didn't want to exit in the middle of them.
Right. That makes sense.
Just so
congratulations. That's fantastic.
I'm excited. It's a journey, and this year is very much a transition year. I've got an amazing team, and so working with them and really pushing them out there to be even more in the community than they have been, and they're fantastic. Making sure that we've shored up, second and third level supporting systems so that we're going to be really strong for the next CEO.
That's awesome. Terrific. So let's switch a little bit and talk about what Texas is facing and what your experience has been. And I always start this off claiming, Texas has so much growth that all these issues are popping up. And of course, you can't talk about that without talking about affordable housing. But I want to ask you, is it really the growth that's causing this, or is there an underlying issue there, or what do you think of that?
Well, the growth is enhancing the problem that already exists.
Right.
Having been in the chamber world, I know that people fight growth because I was on the other side of the fence trying to recruit the growth here. Right. So if growth is the problem, then I'm part of the problem. So. And I always said, that's true. Like, you do have more traffic and you have more issues when you have a growing economy. You can also move to a town that has no economy and no business, and you can walk across Main Street anytime you want to. And
I grew up in the Detroit area, so I know exactly
you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it is like they're just because things are slower doesn't necessarily mean they're better.
Right.
There are jobs to be had. There's a lot of benefit to a growing economy, but you have to manage it well. But we also know that Austin has long believed that if we don't build it, they won't come.
Right.
And so we've done a really good job of constraining supply for a lot of reasons. There were racial reasons that caused a lot of the problems in Austin. There were just flat out, I'm here now, so I don't want anybody else to come. Let me in, but nobody else comes in behind me.
But it's not going to stop.
I mean, that's not going to stop. So we have to face it. Like, we're a city. We're one of the biggest cities in the U.S. We're going to continue to grow, and thankfully we are successful. So how do we provide housing for everyone? Do we want to be just a community that only the ultra rich can afford to live in?
Which is where it's going right now.
Which is where we're headed.
I mean, we talk about this. I talk about this a lot because I talk to people in the industry, and one of the things that made this city great is the arts, right? The artists and everything. Well, the artists can't afford to live here anymore.
It is. We have artists moving into Habitat homes, and I'm thankful that Habitat and Home Base can provide housing for people, but we can't do it fast enough, and that can't be the only solution.
Right.
We have to create an environment that we need more housing at all levels.
Correct. Yeah.
And our team at Habitat, one of the things we said early on was our job is really to fix the problem, not make Habitat successful. Like, if we could put ourselves out of business, that would be a great problem.
Right.
And so we've really challenged ourselves whenever we go, oh, well, that could compete with us. Well, stop. Right. That's fantastic.
Right.
If somebody needs our help and they're doing an affordable housing project, we need to support them. We need to get more housing on the ground at all levels.
Because I think right now the MSA has like 2.3 million. And the last time I talked to Greg, he showed me this stat where in 2050, the projection's like over 5 million.
That's right.
Which is like 27 years from now, it's going to double in size, basically, more than double.
Yeah, if not sooner, the way it is going.
Right, exactly. No, which is just incredible. So I think we can both agree that like we need more density. Yeah. And I kind of want to talk to you about sort of what do you think is causing the lack of density here, and the challenges for trying to get projects approved that you've seen and gone through.
It's a variety of reasons. One of the things I really struggle with are folks that claim that they're supporting affordable housing. I mean, I love it. Like, I love Habitat. I support affordable housing, but then you want to put something close to where they live, or where their kids live, or where their aunt lives, or where their grandmother lives, and war erupts. I mean, it will not happen.
Right.
And so we're going to have to decide what's important. And we have to be able to build more on the land we have. There's just absolutely no other way around it. It is not fair to say, if you don't make, 200% of median family income, that you need to drive 2 hours a day to work. That's not the way you build a healthy community.
No, that's right. And people are just not going to do that
and
either.
They don't. And then you have all kinds of other problems. Right. I mean, you see communities in Colorado where they have to build housing for teachers and build housing for city workers because, they can't even keep that. I know that there's some retail outlets in, the Bee Caves area and Lakeway area that actually bus people in because there's not enough minimum wage workers living in their area. And those are just frustrating things. We have to, as a community, if we say we care about people and we're a loving community, we need to live up to that and challenge ourselves to our own bad assumptions. I'll hear things like, well, Habitat's great. And then, but this project was going to get built down the street for my friend, and that was just wrong. And I'm like, you can't say both of those things.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think you see a lot of the, when these things go in front of the council, you'll see a lot of pushback. It's fine if it's on the east side or something like that, but goodness gracious, don't put it in Hyde Park or don't put it on the west. Not to
and
be
it's
specific.
not always fine on east side, so that's been frustrating too. So I've had, obviously west side issues, but then and west side issues, it's not compatible.
Right.
It's going to mess up traffic. It's a fire hazard. I mean, I could almost tell you any project that goes up for a vote, all the things that people are going to complain about it, because it's the same stuff every time.
Right.
They're never going to say we don't want habitat there, or we don't want housing there, or we don't care about people.
Right, of course.
They're it's going to be kind of disguised in all these other things that it's going to impact.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's going to impact that. We've already got that.
Right.
But we've also had issues on the east side as well, because where some folks think we're going to bring the values down and we don't. Other people think we're going to bring the values up and we don't.
Right.
And so both of those are a problem. And then you get, on top of that, they'll claim it's an environmental concern and integrity of the neighborhood. And it happens, it's all over Austin. It's not even isolated. It's just inherent in people's human nature, either not to trust, not, to want, maybe other people to get a leg up necessarily, or, well, not them. I have in mind the group I want to help, but that's not the group I want to help.
Right.
And so it is frustrating. We've had stuff killed all over town. We've also had stuff passed all over town.
Right.
And I'm very thankful for when that happens. And it was compelling to see the Mueller neighborhood step up when we built the townhomes there and really support the families, and they were very welcoming. And there were folks in the Mueller neighborhood that actually went and brought gift baskets to another neighborhood we were building in another part of town, like their homeowners association did that. That was very moving to me, that they were like, we're a welcoming community.
Right.
And that's an example of where, a large percentage of their homes, they have a nice percentage of homes that are affordable, and people can't tell because, of course, they can't tell because they blend in with the rest of them.
Exactly.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah, for sure. They tried for so many years to update the building code and allow for more increase.
Bad words.
And obviously that's a disaster right now, right? But it seems to me that there are small things that we can do, and not so small things. And you talked a little about compatibility, or maybe minimum parking, or lot size.
All of those,
right? Like those things can really help, right?
Right. I mean, it's like we're going to have to settle on what we can get,
right?
And some simple adjustments. They're not going to be earth-shattering, but being able to get more parking, being able to waive some compatibility, being able to build higher. We've had to fight for years to get the right to build a house or a condo building with less parking, and push it out to the limits of the property line and get as much on there as we could, because it was an awkward piece of property that nobody else really wanted to build on at the time. And unfortunately, it never ended up penciling. One of the problems with it not penciling was you get that far, and then you get to a well-meaning city council that then starts pushing for more. Well, why can't you do more? Like, you need to serve a lower income level, and so next thing you know, we've got a 20.
But you're not solving all the affordable housing problems.
Exactly. But every single project, they will good intention it to death. And sometimes I get the feeling that that's a disguise for we're just going to kill it, but we're going to make it look like we're doing the right thing by forcing something that makes it no longer work.
Right.
And here, with us, we lose money going into the deal, but we can't lose that much money.
Right.
Because
then you can't do any more.
That's
projects.
right. I mean, when you get to the point that you're going to have to build homes that are going to cost $300,000, sell them for $110,000 because they made you, lower the price.
Yeah.
I mean, you start multiplying that by multiple units plus the other, and I think the price just kept going up and up on what the costs were. But you were limited on what we could sell them for and the income levels. And it was just like, I couldn't justify that when I could take that money and go build someplace else.
How has the inflation and rising supplies cost affected you?
Some of our supplies are up 20% year over year. It's been a huge hit. We're fundraising is going well. People are supporting it, but it will impact the quantity we can do. I think everyone's feeling that right now. It's like for a for-profit builder can at least raise the price to cover the cost. Right. Our price is set. Right. Everything you add, and we're getting hit by, Austin energy increases and redesigns and I get it. They've trying to upgrade systems, but there's a lot of things going on that are adding to our costs, but we can't raise our price. So every single thing that gets added on, you have to put the sidewalk in, you have to do this, you have to do, everything adds to the cost.
Yeah.
And just adds to the amount we have to subsidize.
And I think going hand in hand with that, not to get too, Project Connecty, but public transportation has to go hand in hand with this affordable housing, don't you?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It does. We've way behind, we're way behind on investments in a lot of things, but we're definitely way behind on investments there. And so there are larger cities where they will build a little bit further out because there's really good transit to get people in. But cars are a big part of the cost. And now we're really seeing that with gasoline prices. Right. And, you add that on top of somebody's monthly payment. And just the strain on somebody's life when they're trying to work. Sure. Typically, the folks that are trying to work and do that aren't in the position to be able to tell their boss, well, my car broke down, or I've got to take my kid's sick and I have to, drive to another town to go get them out of school. It's just...
Plus just the environmental cost of commuting on the road every day.
Absolutely horrible.
Right.
Horrible impacts on our...
Exactly. I want to talk a little bit about, I think it's the Kemp Project and how that was unfortunately killed at council. And one of the things that...
Well, he made Bloomberg. I mean, he made national news.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that kind of surprised me about that one was the pushback from the local neighborhood group. And I didn't know if you thought that was, sort of misinformation or miscommunication or just what because I would think that a lot of neighborhoods would welcome some affordable housing coming into their neighborhood, but
I'll take some of the blame. I think there's probably a lack of trust. I can't change who I am, but I don't look like I came from the neighborhood. That probably doesn't help. We honestly and sincerely felt like we could deliver more housing than the market was going to put in place. And that's exactly what proved to be true.
Of course, yeah.
And I kept making that argument. I'm like, there's a lot of folks in East Austin that are saying, well, I don't want the developer here and I don't want him to do this and I want to keep it the way it is. And it's one thing if you own that property, but if you don't own the property and it's already been sold to the next person, they're going to do something there.
They're going to build big condos.
They're going to build what makes sense for them.
Correct.
If I can get affordable housing in it, I'm going to find a way to do that.
Right.
Because otherwise it's not going to happen. There's nothing about affordable housing that's easy. So if they want to do that, let's work with them and figure out how to do that to the best of our ability. And so this was an instance where we could take a situation and build more housing and get some affordable housing on it. Over half would have been affordable. That isn't what happened. We had multiple groups come against it, tried really hard to argue it, but they wanted the price lower than we could possibly pencil it and make it work. They wanted, they were concerned about the environment. And I'm like, well, there's going to be houses here regardless. They were concerned about traffic. Again, that some of the same arguments you get everywhere, and I get it. I mean, none of it's perfect, but we're a changing community, and we're going to have to figure out compromises and ways to get housing here, or we're just going to continue to chase away teachers and folks that work in this community.
Because the alternative wasn't between leaving an empty lot and your construction; it was a developer's construction or your construction.
That's right.
And so, yeah. So thinking that Habitat, you guys have been doing a lot of work with for-profit developers, is that right? And so how does that work? How do you guys come in and work with them?
Well, the more we talk about what we do there, the more developers come to us, and some can make it work in their deals and some can't. Some do it out of the goodness of their heart because they really do want to try to figure out how to, they feel like they can take a big development and also leave a lasting impact on the community if they can integrate some habitat in it, some affordable housing in it that will be sustainable, and they like the brand and the association. Some are forced to because they want to do more than maybe current code allows, and that would be one of the few times where the current code is actually in our favor if we can push that through and make it happen. But often, then you're going to get neighborhood pushback. But we have talked with multiple folks working on like a lot of condos in the downtown area and around Austin, townhomes, some homes as well, some single family as well. But largely it ends up being condominium projects because that's where they're going to be building multiple units and carve off some. And I will say, if someone's ever interested in talking to us, talk sooner rather than later. There's a lot of things around the design of the HOA and how that works and how that's funded that you need to figure out before you build the unit and before you actually put the HOA together, because it's really hard after the fact to go and allocate out HOA dues of $800 a unit on an affordable complex.
Right.
Yeah. It just doesn't work.
And it's interesting because I think a lot of people, at least when I started, working with you guys, thought of Habitat as building single family homes, and now it seems there's more and more condo type work. Do you see that as kind of the future?
Well, I look to our friends in Toronto at their affiliate, and in New York City, and in San Francisco, and even Philadelphia, and some of the townhomes and condominium projects that they're doing. And yeah, that's definitely the future in a big city if you want housing that you're not driving in for.
Right.
There are some big city habitats that most of their building is outside the city, but people are taking transit buses and what have you to get to work, or subway. But that's really not what we're trying to do. We're trying to have it in town, and we don't have the transit if we wanted to.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. And one of the things that some of the developers that I work with have complained a lot about are just the time to get permitting and everything through city. And do you run into that issue?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we're an equal opportunities participant in that process. It is frustrating. I know they're understaffed.
Right.
I will grant them that. I know they're severely understaffed, but there's been a problem for years, and it's been identified, and they brought a consultant in, and the current staffing environment doesn't help us get there and solve the problem. But it's just a really frustrating thing to deal with sometimes. Right. My team does have really good relationships though, and they work really hard on that and trying to, And trying to address things up front so that they won't be a problem when it gets time for.
But as you know,
it's upfront permitting. It's the getting the right to build in the first place that takes the longest.
But all of that added time just adds to the cost.
Oh yeah.
Of the project.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, we've got 3 deals right now that we're trying to get through they just, there's this delay, and then it goes back because somebody wants that, and you've got to go get your consultants in and argue about that for 3 more months. And then the 25 homes you thought you were going to build next year goes back down to 12 because you can't get those online. And then you've got to explain to people why you're not producing. And I'm like, yes, we've got all this land, but I can't make this process go any faster.
Right.
And yeah, we say we prioritize housing, but we're not, it's not across the board being a priority.
And that's really the bottom line is we, like you said, we say that we're going to prioritize. We want to help. We want to get affordable housing, but we're not enacting plans that will help with that process. So we're not behaving in a way that would promote that process.
Yeah. If that's truly what we want, we need to put our efforts behind that and take away any obstacles that prevent that from happening and slowdowns.
Right. So overall, kind of sum it up, to build this better Texas, the greater Texas, is there some kind of overall advice that you have for people that want to make this a better area and more affordable area?
Well, some introspection.
Yeah.
Look at your own biases and the reasons why some of the housing isn't being built? Is that part of that yourself? I mean, it sounds great. We need more housing. I want my development to get built, but I want it to get built over there. But how do you feel about that in your own backyard? Like we need all to face up to that. I think too, we're going to have to be willing to vote for better policies and hold our leaders accountable for solutions to the problem. We just absolutely have to. We can't talk about it anymore. We've got to do something.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much. Your voice is so important and so brilliant in this area. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you. You have been such a supporter of ours and such wise counsel. So we appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Phyllis. Appreciate it.